When Michael Lawson, a black CEO and owner of a prominent company, is unjustly removed from his own office, humiliated and accused without reason, the entire workplace witnesses this cruel act of injustice. Emily, the secretary, and Brian, the security guard, driven by their own biases and prejudices, feel they are in the right until they discover who this man truly is. Their world unravels as they confront their own discriminatory beliefs. Just how far will blind cruelty go, and how will the man subjected to such humiliation respond? But let's go back to the beginning. Emily, a longtime secretary, sat at her desk surrounded by leather chairs, ambient lighting, and meticulously organized folders. Her morning was routine until a tall black man in a suit entered confidently, creating an unfamiliar tension. This was Michael Lawson, but his presence unsettled her. A thought crossed her mind. This man shouldn't be here. She glanced up, a hint of suspicion in her eyes, scrutinizing him as if searching for an excuse to challenge him. Ignoring her look, Michael approached her desk. "Good morning, I'm Michael Lawson. I need access to the office for a meeting," he said politely. Emily frowned, rising from her seat with irritation. "I don't see your name on the list," she snapped, asserting control. "Who let you in here?" Her tone was accusatory, and his presence made her visibly uncomfortable. Michael, momentarily taken aback, replied calmly, "Miss, I'm the CEO of this company. I don't require an invitation." Emily's eyes flashed with disdain. "CEO? You?" she scoffed, sarcasm lacing her words. "We don't just let anyone in here without proper clearance. You'd better leave before I call security," she said, her voice icy. Michael held his composure, but the humiliation was palpable. Each word from Emily chipped away at his dignity. He took a steadying breath. "Miss, as I said, I own this company. My last name is Lawson." "Maybe you're unaware," he said, attempting to reason with her. Emily cut him off, her tone laced with contempt, nearly shouting, "Unaware? This is absurd!" She signaled to Brian, the security guard, with a sense of authority. "This man claims he owns the company," she announced loudly, gesturing toward Michael. Brian, forming a barrier between Michael and the office, looked skeptical. Emily demanded identification, and Michael handed over his ID, hoping to end the debacle. Emily barely glanced at it, treating it dismissively, not even verifying it, as she had already deemed it fraudulent. "I'll tell you once more," she said in a threatening tone. "People like you don't belong here. Leave, or I'll call the police." Michael, struggling with anger, firmly replied, "This is blatant discrimination." His voice was calm but resolute. Emily sneered, a mocking smile on her face. "Discrimination? I'm simply doing my job," she retorted, as though that excused her behavior. "If you were who you claim, people would recognize you," she said coldly, her gaze filled with superiority. The guard tightened his grip on Michael's shoulder, painfully squeezing as he attempted to block him. "You should have left when you had the chance," he hissed, his voice dripping with contempt. This was no longer just about an expulsion, but a demonstration of power over someone they deemed unworthy. Brian continued dragging Michael toward the exit, despite his attempts to resist. As the commotion continued, a tense silence filled the office. Some employees watched with smirks, enjoying the spectacle, while others looked away, unwilling to confront the injustice unfolding before them. Michael felt suffocated by anger, but what hurt more was the bystanders' indifference or silent approval. Just as Brian was about to force Michael out, the sound of footsteps echoed in the hallway. A group of senior managers stepped out of the elevator, clearly sensing something was amiss. One of them, a tall man in a sharp suit, walked briskly toward Emily and the guard, his face a mix of confusion and concern. "What's happening here?" he asked, noticing Brian holding Michael back. Emily replied confidently, "This man tried to enter without permission and claims he's the CEO." She looked dismissively at Michael, her expression unwavering. The manager hesitated, shifting his gaze between Emily and Michael, who was calmly adjusting his jacket. Finally, Michael stepped forward. "That's correct. I am Michael Lawson, the CEO and owner of this company, and I expect an explanation for this behavior." The manager turned pale. "Mr. Lawson?" he whispered, horrified. "Is it really you?" "Yes, it's me," Michael replied coldly, his voice filled with the dignity and anger he had restrained. The manager, paralyzed by shock, slowly looked back at Emily, who suddenly grasped the gravity of her mistake. Her face shifted to one of horror and regret. Brian quickly released Michael's arm, understanding the situation had drastically changed. "Mr. Lawson, please accept our apologies," the manager stammered, his voice trembling. He glanced at Emily and Brian, who stood speechless, shame etched into their faces. Emily's voice wavered as she attempted to apologize. "Mr. Lawson, I'm so sorry." But she knew her apology couldn't erase her actions. Michael didn't respond immediately. His gaze conveyed volumes, anger, pain, and the disillusionment with a system that allowed such prejudice to exist. Finally he spoke, his voice calm but resolute. "Perhaps this should remind you not to judge people by appearance," he said, addressing both Emily and Brian. His words landed with the weight of a lesson hard learned. He walked away, leaving the office in stunned silence. Emily felt her career slip away, but beyond the fear of losing her job was a deeper regret, realizing the extent of her role in perpetuating discrimination. In that moment, her sense of justice shattered, leaving her to question her place in a system she had now become painfully aware of. Thanks for watching. Please don't forget to like and subscribe, and stay tuned for our next video.